It's been over 4 months now since I made my first online video, leading us as a church into lockdown. I announced that we would be stopping all physical meetings, but I urged us all to continue to meet, support, and encourage one another, even if that was only by phone or through a computer screen. But I also highlighted the fact that this could be a great opportunity for us to grow as a church, to reach out to people who wouldn't normally come through our doors. That by broadcasting our services through Facebook and YouTube, we could have a far greater audience than ever before. And that's exactly what happened. Hundreds of people viewed our services. People had fallen away from church, tuned into our Friday night worship. Atheists watched the midweek message. And I'm sure that many of you can testify to the fact that acquaintances, friends and family members were suddenly taking an interest in church and God and faith, and were accessing our online material to find out more. But now we come to a different season, where lockdown restrictions are being eased, and we are no longer prisoners in our own homes. Unsurprisingly, this has corresponded with a drop in our Sunday service viewing figures, and that can be disheartening. I mean, where is the revival that was promised? Has this all been for nothing? Were people only interested in faith because they were scared and bored with time on their hands? Well, my wife, Jen, reminded me of this parable told by Jesus to a large crowd. It's found in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, but I'm going to read to you from Luke chapter 8, verses 5 to 8. A farmer went out to sow his seed. As he was scattering the seed, some fell along the path. It was trampled on, and the birds ate it up. Some fell on rocky ground, and when it came up, the plants withered because they had no moisture. Other seed fell among thorns, which grew up with it and choked the plants. Still other seed fell on good soil. It came up and yielded a crop 100 times more than was sown. Now Jesus' disciples were a bit confused by this. So Jesus went on to explain that the 4 different soils that the seeds fell on represented 4 different hearers of his word. The path represented those that just weren't interested. They heard, but it never reached their heart. The rocky soil stood for those that gladly received the good news of Jesus Christ, but it never really took root, so died quickly. The thorny ground showed how for many the busyness of life took over and pushed any thought of faith to the sidelines. It was only the seed that fell on good soil that grew. It was only those who heard the words of Jesus, accepted them, let them take root, and welcomed Jesus into their hearts that became his followers. 1 in 4, not great odds, and yet that is what Jesus has given us to work with. And that's more than enough to yield a massive crop. And after explaining this parable, Jesus reminded his followers to let their light shine so everyone can see it. That's what we want to continue to do as a church, to shine brightly through word and deeds. And I'm so grateful for those of you who have phoned people, written letters and emails, sent texts, dropped off little treats on doorsteps, shopped for the vulnerable, use the technology available to us to continue to disciple people and encourage them to watch our online videos. So, with that in mind, how do we now move forward as a church? How do we continue to let our light shine? How do we disciple one another, but in particular those who have a newly implanted faith that's just starting to grow? Well, For some of you, the answer is to start our Sunday services as soon as possible. After all, we are now allowed to open our doors to prayer and communal worship. I also know that many of you are desperate for us to meet together again, and these past few months of separation have been incredibly hard. So here is our vision and strategy for emerging out of lockdown. Firstly, the practicalities of reopening our doors are enormous, and there are many things to consider. Fortunately, Alison, our hub manager, is on the case, but the reality remains that there will be many restrictions that need to be navigated. For example, there can be no singing, no refreshments, and the 2-meter social distancing rule will still be in place. This may allow some use of our church buildings, but this will also be limited by our ability to effectively clean after each use. Now, if I could put a date on us using our buildings for lettings and some meetings, I would probably say September, but I'm only penciling this into my diary. Secondly, the physical Sunday service that we will be able to provide will not look like what we are used to, and in many ways will be less attractive and less effective than what we're currently providing online. Couple this with the fact that numbers will need to be restricted, and many people will not feel safe enough to attend. We as an eldership feel it would be counterproductive to spend time putting together a Sunday service that in many respects will be second-rate. Thirdly, it is vital that we continue to build on the many successes of the past few months. And opening our church buildings will be a distraction to the missional aspect of our online material. We need to get out there and let our light shine brightly. I want to remind you of a part of our vision document from 2 years ago. It's a picture of lit candles all over a map of Hawley, representing believers letting the light of Jesus shine in their location, be it at work or home or anywhere really. Also, as a church, we have been looking at the importance of us being a scattered community, and that we can reach far more people in our day-to-day lives than when we gather together for a Sunday service. Now, none of this means that Sunday services aren't important. Far from it. But at this time, we have a unique opportunity to build a godly habit of being missional, which unfortunately can be hampered by our buildings. So we propose the following ways to let our light shine. Number 1, I want you to physically meet with others. Now, there are restrictions. Only 6 people can meet outside. Only 2 households can meet inside. And social distancing rules still apply. But please start to meet up for a coffee. Go for a walk. Sit in one another's gardens. Share a meal, grab a drink at the pub. Do all you can to start to meet together again. Number 2, invite someone to watch the Sunday service with you. It could be a neighbour or a friend, an individual, couple or family. Perhaps you've spotted that they've taken an interest in our services. So why not invite them round for tea and cake, watch the service and see where the conversation goes. Number 3, encourage others to join your Zoom home group. This is a great time for sharing, praying and reading the Bible together. And Zoom makes this more accessible than it ever has been. I want to see people's faith deepen, and one of the best ways to do this is through group support, prayer and Bible study. Number 4, we want to use our buildings where we can to make a real difference in people's lives. So we will prioritise use for groups that will provide practical love and hope at this difficult time. This is why Jill Martin has planned Make Lunch for the summer holidays, where we will be providing meals for needy families in our community. And we will continue to have the food bank drive-throughs, which have proved hugely popular. So, things are far from being back to normal, and I know that many of you cannot wait to meet together again. But we need to remember that seeds have been planted that we want to see flourish and grow. And it's up to us to play our part in making that happen. I'll leave you with these words written by Paul to the church in Corinth. 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 7 to 9. So neither the one who plants or the one who waters is anything, but only God who makes things grow. The one who plants and the one who waters have one purpose, and they will each be rewarded according to their own labor. For we are co-workers in God's service. You are God's field, God's